Debra Morrison, a 42-year financial expert. Welcome to the We Can Do It Women movement, where women 60 and wiser step into the spotlight and make the rest of their lives the best of their lives. I'm your host, Debra Morrison, a wealth building expert and champion for extraordinary women just like you. For over 47 years, I've helped women secure their financial futures, and now I'm on a mission to ignite a revolution. Yep, showing the world that at 60, 70, and beyond, some of us might be a nickel slower, yet we're all just getting started. And our esteemed guest today comes to us from East Peoria, Illinois, Pam Miller. Pam's a life and health transitional coach where she helps women effectively navigate and thrive through life's transitions, health, personal, and professional changes that they experience. She does one-on-one coaching where she helps women get out of the feeling stuck and overwhelmed and let go of false beliefs and unhealthy habits that are weighing them down. We are going to talk and dig deeper into each of these topics. Pam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm glad to be here.
Indeed. So talk to us, just expound on that, because the other half of that sentence is so that women can experience the freedom to move forward with greater
Yeah.
self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-love with energy, motivation, and clarity, and help them rediscover their authentic self. That's kind of a tall order, Pam. How do you do
Yeah.
that?
It is, but it's definitely a need. And I think a lot of times what happens is women, we do get stuck. And a lot of it stems from feeling overwhelmed and stressed. I mean, life just comes at us all the time, right? And so it can be life kind of things that happen, those changes that happen. And that's really my specialty, is really working with women who are really, some things just happen in their lives where there's some big changes. And it can be even small changes that actually can still take a toll on you. And so a lot of times when those changes happen, we sort of lose ourselves in the midst of that transition, like even like losing our identity. We're grieving like for what it was. And and sometimes it's just really hard to sort of get out of that kind of fog, and you're needing more direction and all that. And that's where I come alongside and really help women to get out of that overwhelmed and stress state, so they can start. And once you sort of set that down and remove everything that's sort of weighing you down physically, mentally, and emotionally, now it gives you that freedom to start moving forward towards the life that you want to be creating. And so that's where I love partnering with women to really help them really achieve that transformation they want in their lives.
Excellent, excellent. So we're going to dig deeper into that as well.
Okay.
Um, I don't. I have the history of you in terms of Ohio State, but give us before Ohio State. From when
Okay.
did you come? What was your early childhood like, and how did that shape perhaps
Hmm.
your trajectory, excuse me, in life?
Yeah, actually, I am from Ohio. Actually, I went to Bowling Green State University. That's where I graduated from. And so, yeah, just a middle class family, and nothing, really stands out. But I will tell you, and this is something I actually work with my clients on now. Sometimes you have those kind of one line wound sentences that actually happen, and it could be from a family member or like a friend, that those things sort of like really, weigh on you. And even years and decades later, you still remember what somebody said to you, and it's still playing over and over in your mind. And those one line wound sentences, those negative kind of things that are said to you, it helps you, it not helps you, it actually causes you, if you're really thinking about it a lot, to start playing small and not, it really, it affects your self-esteem, your self-confidence. And that's actually where I was. I had some of those things said to me early on. And so I didn't feel like I really had anything of value to really say. That's how I felt, because of a couple things that were said to me that I could not let go in my
In good
mind. I
shape, yeah.
kept playing. And so that's when I went to college at Bowling Green, still feeling like that. And I actually got involved with a Christian organization and just started to make some friends. And it was one summer that I was at home, and I just had like a revelation, like, you know what? I I am of someone of value. I really didn't think I was. The first 2 years of college, if I was in a small group, and this even happened like even in a classroom or like a small group Bible study, I never spoke up because I felt like I had nothing of value to say. You know, that's what I was sort of led to believe. And I just, that one summer between my sophomore and junior year, I'm like, you know what? I sort of stepped back and like, I do feel like I have some things of value to say. I had just really a big kind of change in my life, and I went back really different that third year of college. And I started speaking up. People were like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on with you?" And it was really such a big change. But that's what can happen a lot of times when we sort of like give in to a lot of those mental clutter, that those negative self-talk, the critical kind of talk, the fears and worries, the overthinking, and it can make you feel small. So I could go on, but I'll let you go ahead and ask another question here.
Yes, it was very curious. I was listening to you, and you're saying those messages that we get early on and they stick with us. And I was going to actually chide you and play devil's advocate and say something like Pam, like when your mom said, "Great going, Pam," or your dad said, "Oh, I'm so proud of you, daughter." No, it's the negative that we hang on to disproportionately.
That
And
is really true.
sometimes we don't get those positive. Maybe that's just a dream, a figment of anyone's imagination. And yet sometimes we do. And yet the negative, it's just like the kid that brings home a C on the report card. The rest of them are A's. What does the parent gyrate to and gravitate to? The C, right? And so this whole aspect that we revert, our subconscious really accelerates the negative. And so
Yeah.
you're working with people's, I presume, recasting the neuroplasticity
Yes.
routes in order to bust through that negative, say, wait, that whatever that person's problem was, that was projection. I am this person and I
Right.
have these gifts to give. So what was the catalyst between your sophomore and junior year that got you, through that?
Yeah. Well, let me just speak. There was a lot of positive that was said to me when I was younger, but you're right. I latched on to a couple things and at the time, I don't think I realized that's what I was doing, but really now as obviously I'm older and I can see the big picture.
Yeah.
I realized I was playing them over and over my head and it really was causing me to, just to play small.
Yeah.
And what happens is you miss out on a lot of opportunities. So, but I'll answer your question. So really it was I was doing a Bible study that between sophomore and junior year,
Yes.
and there was some verses in the Bible that talk about how God made us. And basically if you're sort of saying, "Why did you make me like this, God?" You're like, "What are you saying?" Like I'm saying you made bad work. And so it just sort of made sense to me. Like, why am I complaining about things when again, I do have some things to really offer to people. And it just opened my eyes. And again, this is what I help my clients with now. I think sometimes when we're so close to the situation, we sort of lean in and that's all we either see or we hear. And again, it's those negative kind of things and we're playing them over and over and it impacts you and you don't see the truth. And so that's a strategy I really help my clients with is step back, then you can look at the big picture and you get more of an accurate view of what's going on. Like again, it's sometimes we have like these flawed beliefs that we don't even realize, and a lot of them do stem from our childhood. And those flawed beliefs, and we think they lead into our thoughts. And sometimes, we think because we think something, it's true. But
Yes.
just because we think it, thoughts are just thoughts, they are not facts. But in our mind, we think they're true. And especially if you're playing them over and over again, you're really deepening that groove in your brain. Like, so your brain's just going there all the time. And so yeah, in a sense, I didn't know at the time, but really I stepped back and I looked at the big picture and I realized, yeah, those things were said to me, but so many other things were said to me. And again, how did I feel? And I just felt more connected to myself. And I'm like, you know what? I do have things to offer. And so it just really opened up my world, really, in a sense.
Right.
And things that I was sort of missing out on because I was feeling small. Now I'm like, oh, and it really changed the trajectory of my life after that. I got to tell you that.
Yeah.
There's just, and that's the sad thing sometimes, so many times. And I'm so glad actually that happened because, and that was whatever, how would I have been? 20 years old. Oh my gosh, I'm 67. I would have missed out on this great life over the last 47 years if I had not had that revelation. So that's really what I really try to help my clients with now. So they're again not playing small and not missing out on. Really, it's the joy of life. It's being alive and being your authentic self.
Yes, and I think that so many of us that have had these types of breakthroughs, it's not conscious. Well, first of all, the subconscious is very literal, so we understand that. And yet, it's not until we're on the other side of um,
Mhm.
the negativity, the abuse, whatever, that we can feel the relief and then say,
Yeah,
oh my heart, that was heavy I was carrying. But while we're in it, we're kind of like bucking up, right? And so I think it's this acquiescent to carrying a lot of weight that a lot of people, really are raised with and adopt as
yeah.
their kind of I don't know, this is your life, right? And yet I'm witness to it. I mean, I was in a firm with all men. And that was mostly my life as a young woman in finance, and people said, "Isn't that kind of like overbearing? Like all men, and you're the one young woman at that." And I said, "No, I got this," because I could, bust through a cement wall. And yet, when I went to a firm where there were women in charge, I remember it vividly. I was driving home, and I thought, I'm not exhausted to the
Mhm.
bone at the end of a day, And so it's that relief that I think, you are holding out to
Right.
the world and your clients to say, you can be beyond this. You
Yes.
can actually experience joy because I think that that heaviness can come in and pretty much obscure joy.
That's so true. And that's probably one of the biggest things I want to say. That's really my expertise. I feel like, as a coach, is really helping my clients start shifting from a negative mindset to a positive mindset, because that is a game changer. It is such a game changer. I mean, I just gave my example there, and you were talking about yourself. And I think a lot of times a lot of times when we're so busy and we're running from one activity or event to the other, doing our jobs or appointments or whatever, we're not stopping and thinking, like, what am I thinking right now? We don't really tune in to our thoughts. And so that's one of the things that I really try to help my clients with, is like, that's really where it begins. It actually really it begins with our beliefs and
Right.
then goes into our thoughts. But a lot of times I'll start with the thoughts, like, okay, slow down and try to catch that negative thought, that critical thought. What are you like saying to yourself over and over? Because I've read a lot of articles, and most of them say, this is sort of mind blowing, that we think 60,000 thoughts in a day. I mean, is that crazy or what? That is a
I think
lot
it's
of
even more than
thoughts.
that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. And the other statistic I have read is that 95% of those, for most people, are negative.
Absolutely.
And then of those 60,000, get this, 90% are repetitive.
Yeah.
So if 54,000 over 60,000 thoughts are negative, and you are thinking about those all day long, how you going to feel at the end of the day? You're going to feel exhausted. And a lot of times we don't even realize that's where it's coming from. Like, why am I so tired? And it's because you've been playing over and over. It could be those one line wounds. It could be again, we have high expectations of ourselves, so we're sort of shoulding ourselves. We say those should, like, you should have done this, and you were shaming ourselves,
Should, pal.
and being very critical. It weighs you down. And so a lot of it is, like I said, I really help them sort of slow down. Like, let's sort of start try to help you catch some of those negative thoughts. And once you catch them and stop them in their tracks, and before, I call it going down that rabbit hole of negative thinking, where it starts maybe very small, and at the end of the day, if you're thinking about it all day long, now that negative thought has grown. It's like when we roll down a hill, and as a kid, and we're collecting everything on all the stuff that's on the ground. It gets, we collect all this stuff if we're like rolling down that rabbit hole. And so if we at least stop it, and I try a couple different strategies. So we work on reframing. So taking that negative thought, and let's turn it and really take that negative thought, and let's reframe it into more of a positive, truthful, kind, and helpful thought. And if
Mhm.
you're able to do that, and it goes down now the positive track, you now have really helped yourself not be weighed down from that. And
Absolutely.
so, I mean, that's a skill. And a part of it is, again, slowing down so you can realize what you're saying. And that's what I have them do, is maybe write down some of those thoughts. We come together and then we work, especially the ones that are on repeat. It's like those loud soundtracks that just keeps going on and on. And
Exactly.
we'll brainstorm some kind of reframe statements. And then they
Yeah.
start practicing that. And I think you mentioned this about neuroplasticity. So really, our brain is a muscle, so we we can start changing our brain here.
Right now.
And so part of it is catching it because your brain, if you've been thinking about it, like I was mentioning, that groove is really deep. And so your brain just keeps going down that. So now you're going to try to start working on the positive reframing. So it goes down that positive track, the more truthful track, and to try to start shifting your brain to start going that way. And
Right.
so I will tell you, that's a game changer when you can when you can have maybe more positive thoughts than negative.
Yeah.
We all have negative thoughts, but it's really what we do with them. It's like we keep on thinking about them or we sort of stop them in their tracks, replace them, or I also do something called like turn down the dial kind of techniques to help them because we can't do a switch. We
Yeah.
can turn down that loud soundtrack so it's not blaring in our head, and it could be more of like maybe a physical kind of activity. Like I can't stop thinking about this. Okay, get up. What's an activity you can do? Something fun that might just take a few minutes, but it gets you stop thinking about it.
Yeah. The break state. We
That's
got
right.
this state. Now coming back down
Yeah.
to Ohio State Mansfield campus, you initially majored in elementary education and then you switched to social work.
Oh yeah, that's
Talk to
true.
us
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, I did graduate from Bowling Green, but my first year, I did go to the Mansfield, Ohio State campus. And so I was in elementary education. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, first grade teacher, ever since I was in first grade. So I had great teachers going through the years. And then we did like some observation my freshman year, and I was in the classroom. And what I found was I loved just sitting down and just talking to the kids. I loved just having those conversations with them. And I thought, you know what? I didn't know if I would really want to be a teacher. I think I want to just really help these students. And so that's where I switched to social work. And so when I transferred um, to Bowling Green,
Bowling
that's
Green.
when I switched. And so my bachelor's is in social work.
Social work from Bowling Green. And then you got your Master's of Art in English at
That's
Bradley
right.
University,
Right.
somewhere between 2008 and 2011. And then your certification as a life and health coach from the Health Coach Institute in 2022. And that, of course, serving now as the foundation for your coaching career. So,
Yeah.
talk to us about the youth ministry and then how you
Mm.
morphed into the
Yeah.
21 years in higher education, right? So, talk to us
Right.
about that.
Yeah. I loved working at the college. Um, yeah, so like I said, so I moved to the Chicago area after Ohio, after I graduated
Yes.
and it was with some roommates and everything. And I applied for some jobs with my bachelor's in social work and I got offered some, but they were so low paying. I thought I'm not going to be able to survive in Chicago with that salary. And so my goal was, okay, I'm going to take the GRE and I'm going to get my master's. Meanwhile, I want to just keep my feet wet. And so I got like a job at an accounting firm. And so just to pay the bills. But I started volunteering at the church's youth group. And so working with high school students. And again, there was that I love just really having those conversations, talking about life, helping them with spiritual things. I loved high school students. And I was young, obviously out of college. I started working with them like 22, 23.
Yeah.
And, they were like, whatever, 15, 16, 17, 18. So they were pretty, close to my
Close to
age.
your age. Yeah.
But I started like doing some one-on-one with them. And again, doing some mentoring with them. And I really, really enjoyed that. I took a summer off of my job. Um, okay, I'm trying to think of the year now. So around that time,
Mhm.
and to be a camp counselor at a junior high camp out in Colorado. Because I thought I'm going to do that and just see, is this something I want to do full time? And so my job was really very gracious to let me take off the summer and I could still have a job when I came back.
Right.
And I really loved it. So then I started making plans to go into youth work. And so that's actually what brought me down to the Peoria area, Illinois. I was in full-time youth ministry with a Christian organization. So really loved doing that. And again, I went in at that time, I was able to go into the high schools and actually be there for all the lunch periods and sort of mingle. They saw me as a positive influence. And the amazing thing was, okay, so let me think how old I was. I was 28 at the time. And here I am with all these high school students. And so a little icebreaker was, okay, what year do you think I'm in school? Now, this is before I got married and had kids. But so I passed for like, I think you're a freshman. I think you're a here I was 28. And I'm like, oh gosh, to be that young looking again. But anyways, But I developed some really great relationships with these high school students. And again, my heart was I loved the mentoring, I loved the coaching. And really, that's what I've been doing actually for 4 decades. Obviously, I started with youth ministry and did one on one and some group coaching too, mentoring, I guess I want to say.
Yes.
And then now I go to, I was a substitute teacher, actually a lot of times so I was at home with my kids and when they were young. And then when they started going to the grade school, I'm like, you know what? I'll start doing some subbing. And so a lot of times I was in their school and sometimes I was their teacher, which was pretty cool. And so then, then they went to the junior high. And I'm like, you know what? I'll just be a teacher's aide. And so that way I can be off at 3 and and take them to their activities. So I got a job at the junior high when they were there. So then I thought, okay, college. Okay, we didn't have a college fund at the time. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to try to get on at Bradley University because I had a great tuition remission program. Like if you were there for 4 years, your kids could go tuition free. And so I got
Yikes.
on at Bradley and then they got their bachelor's. And when they came, I'm like, you know what, they're going to pay for my master's. I'll go ahead and get my master's while I'm here. So that's when I did my master's in English. So
Excellent. Wow. Well, I know that I've read about a number of programs that you offer, and we're going to get into some of the speaking topics you have. I was keying in on one particular item of interest, and that's a 12-week course that you've offered called the Five Pillar Framework.
yes.
You talk about the first pillar, which is declutter, which is really, really important. So talk to us about declutter, please, and then what are the other four pillars, please?
Yeah. So that's really my one-on-one program. So I do a lot of speaking in the area. I offer a lot of like free talks. And then I just started a group coaching program that's actually going on right now that we could talk about. That's a 6-week one. But my primary one is one-on-one. And so I designed this program after I graduated from the Health Coach Institute in August of 22.
Yes.
I had some so they sort of gave us, I guess I want to say like a 12-week kind of script, I guess you want to say sessions. And I used that at first, and it really was just sort of overall kind of just helping with health and life growth. And so I used that for like the first 6 weeks as I was meeting with my clients. And then as I was having a lot of conversations, I started seeing a lot of similarities as far as the needs. And so that's where I created my own program with my own kind of framework. And it's,
Good.
again, it is a framework, but I always personalize it to that person, whoever, what they're working on. So
Yes.
yeah, I call it my Thriving Through Life's Transitions program, sort of what I was just talking about. And so I take clients one-on-one through my 5 pillar program. So yeah, so speaking of declutter, so I was just mentioning that is such an essential, that's the very first pillar. That's a foundational one. Just as I was just talking about mental clutter.
Yes.
Clutter in all forms actually just weighs us down. We've been talking about mental clutter, and that's a big part in that foundational pillar, but even physical clutter. I think a lot of times we don't even realize how clutter is affecting us in a negative way. The interesting thing, Deborah, is when I was doing research on all of this, like years ago, I came across the synonyms of clutter. Now, get this: chaos,
Yeah.
noise, mess, disorder, disarray. Okay, it's no wonder we feel
Right.
like a big toll on us, right? Those are pretty powerful words.
Yeah.
And again, sometimes we don't realize that maybe you're feeling stressed in your home because there is a lot of stuff all around.
Right.
Maybe we just sort of get used to it, but it does sort of take a toll on our nervous system.
And don't bring a feng shui specialist in while you still have clutter, because they'll just spend the first 10 minutes or the first maybe hour talking about the clutter. Yeah, I mean, so there's something to that. Obviously, I'm
There
making
really is,
a joke, but
yes.
the energy,
Hmm.
basically, our energy gets tamped down. And
Yes.
to your way of saying earlier, Pam, we become smaller. All of
Yeah.
these instances, we tend to, I mean, no one can make us feel anything, but we tend to adopt into and shrink into a smaller version of ourselves.
Yeah. That is so true. And and again, a lot of times we don't realize it's even going on.
Yeah.
Again, like you said, so until you
Frog in a
start,
pot, right?
yeah. And so I think what ends up happening is you start having these negative feelings, and it's like, okay, I'm feeling stuck, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm not happy, I feel miserable. Those get your attention.
Yes.
And when I was talking about how a lot of times it really starts with our beliefs that go into our thoughts, I do focus a lot here on a lot of times our thoughts lead to our feelings, which then lead to our actions.
You bet.
And as I'm working with clients to help them, like I was saying, sort of like grab some of those negative thoughts and stop them in their tracks, this is skill. The more you do it, you're going to start catching it and realize it. But the other way that you can know you're thinking negative is your feelings. A lot of times we know when we're feeling miserable, we're feeling overwhelmed, we're feeling stressed. I can't focus. And so that can get your attention like, okay, what's going on right now? What am I thinking? And so those are those kind of things where, again, being more intuitive to yourself,
Yes.
there's such value in that to be more self-aware because how can you work on something if you're not aware of it, right? And
Well, we got to
so,
bring it conscious.
yeah, that's right. So, yeah, so this declutter foundational pillar, that's so crucial because you cannot move forward until you get out of what's weighing you down. And a lot of times, we work on some physical clutter, but a lot of it would be like the mental clutter. And I would say, hands down, all my clients over the last 3.5 years, that's what I've worked on. Everyone really struggles with this. And so, part of it is again reducing that mental clutter, turning the volume down with the overthinking, the negative self-talk. How are you treating yourself? We really, we can be so hard on ourselves, and again, it's taking a toll. So being aware of that, start working on some skills and some strategies to help get out of that, and then once you release that,
Right.
now I can move forward. And so the second pillar of my program is I call Nourish. A lot of times what happens is we tend to put our needs on the back burner, and so now this is the time to start replenishing you, like your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health. And so really tapping into what's going to fill you up,
Yeah.
taking time for self-care. I mean, how many women, we're always giving to everybody else, right?
I
And
know.
where our needs are on the back. And there's times when I'll talk to clients and I'm like, okay, what's something that you enjoy doing? I don't even know. And
I know.
that's
She's
what happens. We get lost. We don't even know ourselves anymore. But, by the time that they're done meeting with me, they're figuring that out. And so that's the great thing because that's what's, like I was saying, it's going to make you feel more alive. When you're doing things that interest you and you're passionate about, like you with your program and stuff, and what you're doing, your ministry. So so this is the point where I'm really, we're really replenishing all those reserves. So it sort of fills you back up.
yeah.
And, self-care is such a great thing. It's such a win-win. You take time for yourself. And then you have so much more now to give to others because, women want to give to others, but a lot of times we're giving out of a dry well. And then that's what gets you exhausted.
Absolutely. I mean, even our cars have idiot lights, fuel
Yeah.
reserve, right? And so I
Yeah.
always talk about, I mean, now we don't have so many saucers anymore because we're an age of mugs, but travel mugs especially, but we're called to fill our cup up first and give from the overflow, give
Right.
from the saucer, because absent our own selves being filled and satisfied, then whatever we're giving out is probably not being received because it's tainted. I mean, there
Right.
has to be this sense of lack that is somewhere breeding in us.
Yeah.
If our cup isn't full, our cup is full, we're good.
Right.
We're proud of it. We've worked to have that, or we've inherited it and we're grateful to have preserved it. And yet it's that giving from the saucer. And so to the women who's so ingrained about the otherness, right? The outward focus, I say, let's just keep giving to yourself so that you can soon give from the saucer. And that like catapults them into having more self-care. Whatever
Well,
works.
and 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 that's a lot of times, as women, we're very busy. And so that's a lot. I'm like, it can even be 5, 10, 15 minutes. It will make a difference.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about some ways. There's some lot of things. And so that's what I work with them on. Like, let's, again, I think we can also struggle with all or nothing thinking, oh, if I don't have an hour to go work out, I'm not going to do that. And I will tell you,
Right.
that was me for years. I'm like, oh my gosh, you mean I could have worked out for 15 minutes and still benefited? And
Yeah.
but I think that's our mentality a lot of times. If I don't have an hour, then I'm not going to do it. And then you like miss out on all these kind of times that could have still played in and
Yeah.
still would have like start filling you up. So again, there's that. So then my third pillar I call release. So now it's really releasing those false beliefs and unhealthy habits that have been weighing you down and replacing them more with the truth and the healthy habits that really help you live your best life. And so, and then we go into expand, and this is now where your confidence is growing. You're stepping out, you're trying new things. I'm all about small steps. Small steps are manageable and they really create momentum, and they really
Absolutely.
do lead to great results, because part of it is I want you to be successful. And if I'm not going to have you go here and take a big step. I mean, you're not going to, it's not manageable. It's going to be overwhelming. I don't want that for you. Taking small steps and there's that repetition, some consistency. You're going to start incorporating some healthy habits that are going to now become more automated in your life, and you're going to start benefiting. That's the cool thing about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
then going into embody, and that's really my fifth pillar, where now it's like you got different rituals, different habits, different thoughts, different beliefs, and you feel totally transformed in your body. You're walking with more self-confidence and clarity, and now you've created these healthy habits that are going to last. And so that's my goal. So 12 weeks, which is what my program is, 12 weeks is really the minimum amount of time for things to last. That's part of it. You want to be able to instill some healthy habits over that kind of time. And so that's so important for me, because it's like it's not a dependency on me. I'm really equipping you with what you need, so now when we're done, you are still excelling and still thriving. And the great thing is I'm always in touch with my former clients. I get together with them. I catch up, and I always find out how they're doing, and they're still thriving. And that's beautiful. And I got to tell you, it's such a privilege for me. It's a cool kind of seat to sit and watch the transformation happen right in front of my eyes. And it's just so encouraging, and I love doing it. So,
Well, it sounds like you're very good at it. This whole analogy, I was raised on a farm, so we
mm,
were very basic and we spoke the truth and really wasn't much time for fluff. And so I don't know, but maybe that was the genesis for my ability to come up with analogies quite a bit. And yet, like if we open the refrigerator and something's been there for a while and now we call it a kind of a scientific experiment, and we take the lid off and whatever the smell. I mean,
yeah.
there's no way we're going to slice a new tomato or something and put it in on top of it,
Mm,
right? And yet, and without the expunging of that core negative, without the ripping out the roots,
yes.
then whatever the good that we're putting in has to work like 8 times, if it's even possible, as hard to penetrate all of the backup of
Yeah.
the rot, if you will. And I think when we get right down to basics in that fashion, it may becomes more clear. Oh, I see. Because like I like to pop open older women's heads, pull out that negative socialization. Oh, don't worry your little head over that. Betty Bob will handle it. Your money. And because if I just put new stuff in, first of all, there's a limited amount, presumably,
Right, right.
although our brain is unlimited. And so it's just when you think of things in common sense terms, it's like, well, of course, we would throw that scientific experiment out, get a new container, and put our fresh food in there and delight in that. And be nourished, to your point,
Right,
nourished
right, right.
by that number two. So amazing stuff. I appreciate your sharing that. Now you also have another well, you talk on 4 topics: reducing stress, reducing sugar cravings, how to incorporate self-care into a busy schedule, and how to grow and strengthen your self-love. Talk to us about the sugar cravings.
Yeah, I actually have a couple of those talks coming up here this month. So the two times that I usually like to speak about this is October and January. October, we got the holidays coming up. Already, obviously, we're already being surrounded with candy with Halloween coming up. And then obviously the holidays right around the corner. I mean, sugar cravings, we all struggle with it. I mean, it's such a big, it's a big kind of struggle. And people are frustrated, like, I just can't get a handle on it. But a lot of times what happens is we're eating sugar on an empty stomach. And so guess what happens? We're going to crave more sugar. And that's part of it. We keep craving it. And you say, I'm only going to have one cookie. Well, then you end up going back, you go back, you go back. And I mean, I can tell you what, I can relate to that. Like early on in my marriage, we had a Sam's Club membership, and I would buy the big, gigantic thing of chocolate chips. And I love frozen chocolate, and it actually stems from, some time I would have with my dad growing up, and he always froze his Hershey bar. And
Oh,
so it
that's
was a special kind of thing. Can I have one of your frozen Hershey bars? So I think that's why I love frozen chocolate. But it was supposedly for baking, but I found myself going to that freezer, deep freezer all the time and just eating it. And once I took one, I'm like, I was a goner for the rest of the day. So I get it. And it can be so frustrating because sugar makes us, again, lethargic. I mean, we get foggy kind of brain and we don't feel good about ourselves too, because like, it's like it has control on me. And
exactly.
there is, I mean, I just read a statistic that like about 80% of population really actually says they are addicted to sugar. And so this is a topic because it's one thing that um, it's something I resonate with, and I you don't like it when it's happening and you feel like you're out of control. And so with the sugar, it just sort of takes you over. And then you start fearing like Halloween and all that kind of stuff. Like I don't want to be around it. And but so that's why it's a topic that's really important to me. I really want to be able to give women and men just some skills and some strategies to do some things a little bit different to curb your sugar cravings. It's like that's part of it. It's curbing and it's being more in control so that sugar doesn't control you in a sense. And so
Well,
there's some different things that you can do, you know, and so yeah, so anyways, I talk about that. I'll give you a couple strategies here in just a minute.
yeah, tick them
But
off.
um, but there are some things that you can do to really set you up for success where you can still satisfy your sweet tooth, but not be like out of control with the sugar. So one of the biggest things and is protein. Protein is a game changer.
I know.
And especially for midlife women, we need even more because of, the declining estrogen in our bones. And it's just so important for our muscles and all of that. And so really for midlife women, we need at least a minimum of 100 grams of protein a day.
Yeah.
And that's 35 grams at each meal, which can be a challenge. And so but here's the great thing about protein. And so I do help my clients with figuring out how to incorporate that into there because again, that's most people don't even probably are close to the 100 grams unless they're intentional. You have to be intentional to try to eat that much.
Right.
But what protein does, it actually for sure, it fills you up for one thing,
Yes, indeed. Right
which is
now.
a great thing. And then it fills you up and it gives you that sustainable energy, where it's like even, it's not going to be that big spike like what
Spike.
sugar does and comes down.
There you go.
And it's been known to actually reduce your sugar cravings, which is such a good thing. And so protein is a game changer and you just feel good. You feel healthier when you eat protein, actually.
Yeah.
So eating protein is a good strategy, again, to curb the sugar cravings. And even just along with protein, it's just even having more of a balanced meal. So if you're having protein, help some fiber. We need fiber, healthy fat like avocado, and even some carbs in there, some vegetables. Now you're having a balanced meal. And again, if you end up having a snack, sugar snack after that meal, again, it's going to absorb it. And again, we're not going to get that spike with our blood sugar
Right.
because that spike is what makes us like, we come crashing down and then we want more because we feel we're sort of down in the dumps kind of thing. And so feeding your body, nourishing your body with healthy food will absorb if you end up eating like some sugar. But here's the thing. I eat something sweet every day, but I have changed what I've eaten and it still satisfies my sweet tooth. And I always bring door prizes that's related to my talks, to my events. But you have to be a nutrition, or you have to be a nutrition label kind of reader. And so looking for things that, again, if it has 0 sugar or 1 gram of sugar, very low sugar, because that's going to help not crave the sugar.
Yes.
And you can find some that has protein, fiber. Fiber is what fills you up. Then you're not going to want to have more.
That's
And
right.
then it can have some fat in it, but because we need fat, we need some healthy
Oh, for
fat.
sure.
And so I'm a big proponent, again, reading it, like Quest bars are great. They have 20 grams of protein. They have fiber in it. They have usually 0 to 1 gram of sugar in there. They have some healthy fat.
Yeah.
I also, Aloha bars are other really good too. It's a plant-based that has 14 grams of protein in it. Again, it has the fiber. It has some sugar. I don't have those statistics right now.
Yeah.
And then I actually order, it's called Chalk Zero, CHOC dash zero. It's my favorite chocolate, and it's like little bars, and each one would definitely has 0 grams of sugar. And then it has like 1 or 2 grams of protein, has some fiber, and then it's a little bit of fat. But here's the thing, it's a chocolate peppermint. It still satisfies my sweet tooth. I'm getting my chocolate in, but I'm not craving more. And I'm being filled up with that fiber. And so that's part of it is like eating, being strategic on what you eat to still satisfy that sweet tooth, but it's not calling, that sugar treat is not calling your name and you got to go back and get some more. When it has 0 grams, 0.1 grams of sugar, it's not activating that sugar kind of
That's
craving. And
it.
that's what we're trying to curb. So those are some tips right there.
Well, those are excellent tips. I always like to discipline myself by drinking a very, like an 8 ounce glass of water before I do anything sugar wise. And I even drink the water before a meal, such that it really
Mhm.
does tend to fill you up. And we do, typically need a lot of water. Um, I have a sign. I had some caramels from Costco that I really liked. They were called Sanders or something, and they were delicious. And it come in a little jar, whatever. And I've never been one. Like I can have a pound of chocolate sitting here and I'll eat a piece and that's fine. I couldn't even imagine eating through a box, but I know I'm an anomaly. There are people that do
Mhm.
that. And I'm grateful that I don't have that challenge. And the issue is I have but on these, because they're small,
Yeah.
I put a sign on the cap of the lid. I have to undo the lid to get it out. And I never take more than one. I take one out. And on the lid, it says, one is so satisfying to kind of remind myself, just have smaller bites, right? I think that we're in such a supersized economy when we
Yes.
eat
Yeah.
out that like Weight Watchers told just smash that in half and put it and tell the server just put half of it in a takeout
Right.
because I don't need all that the menu is giving me for that extra dollar, right? So I think Pam, what it always surprises me is I'll identify as type A cubed, right? I'm kind of a control freak. Well, I'm pretty much a control freak, and yet there are areas in my life that I do not attend to. And it makes me,
Mm.
the duplicity of it when I finally realize, oh my gosh, I haven't, oh, there is more clutter here than I would,
Mm.
otherwise desire. And so it's that calling ourselves into the responsibility. And if we're a control freak, let's go ahead and control our environment because it's going to control
Yeah.
our body. I mean,
Yes.
sugar is, sugar, cancer feeds on sugar. And I'm not
Right.
blaming
Right.
anybody for a disease. I'm just saying it's smart to be preventative in our eating habits. So I'm all for the work that you're doing on that. And then you talk about you have a self-love topic. You've turned that
Mm.
into a 6-week group coaching program. Talk to us about what are the tenets of that?
Yeah. So I wanted to create a new talk. And so what last February, I've done like 3 Facebook challenges where it was like maybe just like 5 to 7 days and they were free and
Yeah.
it was focused on a topic. And so my third one that I did was last February around Valentine's Day, and it was called Put a Little Love in Your Heart. And so it was one of those Facebook challenges. And I had the most people in that group. It was like 20 women and they were and I recorded ahead of time like a 6 to 8 minute kind of video for 3 of the days. So there was action steps every day, and I would put like little visual kind of memes in there, and they would have to make comments. And it was the most engagement that I had had in a Facebook challenge. And I
Nice.
thought, this is a topic that everyone resonates with. And let me just back up on that.
Yes.
I probably in January of 2025, before I put this together, which prompted me to do this, I had read, I follow somebody called Danny DePiro on Instagram, and she had written, she had made a note of, she has lots of followers, but she has sent a survey out to all of her followers that said, what quality would you want to be focusing on in 2024? So it was the year before, but she was sharing the results, and it was self-love. And I'm like, oh, wow. And so I put that Facebook group together, a lot of engagement. And I'm
Nice.
like, this is a topic that people want, and they want to improve. And
Yes.
so I turned it then into um, a talk. And the first time I gave the talk was in March. And I have spoken to a senior singles group that they're like 60, 70, and 80. So I've been there like 4 times. And
Okay.
so I said, hey, I'll come and do this talk. Now, like I said, the audience 60 to 80s. And again, that's your audience here. And so here I'm doing this talk. And like it was the fourth time I've been there. This was the first time they had so many questions afterwards. And they
Wow.
were saying, they really resonated with it. Here they, again, they're 70 and 80 years old and they're like struggling with self-love. Again, it just shows you it doesn't matter what age you are, right? And
That's
so I'm
right.
like, oh my gosh. And so I'm like, I really got to be focusing on this. This is such a need. And I want people to feel better about themselves, right?
Yeah.
And so then I ended up speaking again in June, and it was very well received. It was like another big group that came. And around that time, there was something that I was reading that happened in the world. I forget her name, but maybe you'll remember the story. But she was a young, I think she was maybe late 20s, I want to say. She had a real passion for foxes. And she was doing like a blog, and she was very active, rescue the foxes, and she had a lot of followers and was very passionate about this. And she was married. And what happened was she committed suicide. I'm going to get a little emotional here because it really, like, I've read stories like this, but this one just really got to me. I'm going to get emotional. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But, and what prompted her or what led her to commit suicide, she was getting, I don't know, people were being critical of her. And I mean, you know how people are like on the internet. And it's like, it got to her. Here she was so passionate about this mission she had to save foxes and was doing great work, but somehow other people's voices just crowded out her own voice. I mean,
Mm.
it just really got to me.
Yeah.
And I've been getting chills just even talking about it. And I'm like, I really, I gotta help more people. And so I did that talk in June. And I thought, I'm going to try to create a group program. Now, I just retired from higher education after 21 years last May. And
Uh,
so the great thing is I have more time now and I'm excited about it. It's been fun.
yeah.
I've really enjoyed it and I've been able to do more things like doing podcasts too. And so, and I'm like, this is something I want to do. So I worked on it a lot this summer. And so I put together, it's a 6 week, and I'm actually currently in it. This is week 4. So we started it September 8th. So it's called Rewriting Your Story from Self-Criticism to Self-Compassion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like for those that just really struggle with,
Yeah.
their view and their treatment of themselves, let's work on this together and get you out of that. And so you can start treating you with the love, the kindness that you so deserve. And again, it's a game changer when we think differently of ourselves and it frees you up then to be your true self. And so it's been going really well. It's been wonderful. And the ladies that are in the group, um, they're really experiencing some pretty breakthrough moments. So it's been beautiful. So
Amen.
we still have a couple more weeks to go. And so this is something I'm going to continue doing. So I know I'm going to offer it again next March after Valentine's Day. So another 6 weeks.
Okay.
So yeah, this has been definitely a passion of mine. And I just love the opportunity to really help these women just um, start treating themselves with like I said, the compassion that they deserve because they are valued. They're worthy. They're enough now. And so many, have struggled with, I'll be enough when. How about
Yeah.
now? Let's do it now. And
Yeah.
so just again, we've worked on the negative thinking and all of that and flawed beliefs that sort of led into false thoughts that they were really basing a lot of things on. And so starting to get that shift going, that's been the coolest thing just to really see that happening with them.
Hmm. Exactly. And I want to mention that obviously you were one of the co-authors of At the Feet of Ordinary Women, published back in 2002. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that and whether you've, changed your opinions and so forth since 2002, because a lot's happening in the world, particularly
Yeah.
as it affects women.
Yeah, that was such a cool opportunity. It's one of those things, the bucket list, to be a published author.
Yes.
Um, So I was, so how that book actually came about, I was involved with women's ministry at my church,
Uh-huh.
and we wanted a book study on just mentoring older women to younger women. And we couldn't find anything that was out there at the time. So we ended up, there was five of us. We ended up writing the material and the Bible study questions for that study. And so we had like 100 ladies that went through it, and we got some really good responses. And so we ended up, a few of us went to a conference called Speak Up with Confidence because we were starting to do some speaking. And there we ended up connecting with somebody who got us connected with a publishing company. And so one of the ladies of the five spearheaded that. I had just started back to work full time, and she was not working at the time, and so got things sort of in motion. And so that was such a cool experience to come together and write that book. And really, we took a verse from the Bible from Titus that talk about the older woman mentoring the younger woman. So it's like, as far as kindness, how to be and how do you love your husband, how do you love your kids. So that's what the verse sort of talks about. And we shared our stories in there. So yeah, it was obviously 2002. It actually went into its second printing. There was like 14,000 that were
Good.
sold, and got a lot of speaking opportunities from that. I was going around for a lot of women's events and church events, and I really loved doing that. And then that company, Nav Press, ended up being bought out by another publishing company. Um, I can't remember what the year, maybe about 8 years
Yeah.
ago, I guess maybe. But and then when they came in, they only kept a small amount of their authors. And so the book is still on Amazon, and so you can still get that. But I still have people that say, I have my book still. So,
Oh, those are
but it
wonderful
was
moments,
really,
aren't
it
they?
was a wonderful experience. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, is there anything I've missed that you want to opine on? Because I don't want to leave anything out. You had talked about in your notes here a leader, a particular leader who made a huge difference. That
Mm.
in between your sophomore and junior year, or was that a different person?
Yeah, it's actually when I was working full time with youth ministry when I moved to the Chicago area. So it was, I think it actually, again, this is what I do now so much with my women. I came out of my shell like when I was in college, but I was doing youth ministry full time, working with high school girls, especially individually and then in small groups. I was asked to speak in front of a large group, youth group. And at that point, I had not spoken in front of a large group. So this
Okay.
is back in 1987,
All
88,
right.
something like that. And Jim was somebody that was also on staff with me. So I was asked to be the speaker, and I'm like, I was like flipping out. I'm like, my knees were already buckling, at the thought of it. So I said no. And so Jim knew that. And so he came and said, Pam, I really think you could do this. I'm like, I don't know. He goes, you have it in you. And so we talked a little bit more. And really, what was going on, Jim believed in me before I believed in myself. And
Right
he
now.
saw something in my
Right.
potential.
Right now.
And so I'm like, well, I'm not there, but I'm going to go on your belief. So I stepped out of my comfort zone, did that event. I didn't faint, so that was good. I survived. But here's the great thing, Deborah. It unleashed a passion in me that I would have missed again. So I
Absolutely.
stepped out, and I'm like, oh, this is something I think I could really enjoy. And just equipping and empowering other people, and it made such a difference in my life because I thought, again, that's what fear does. It holds us back. Again, there's that plain small. Once you sort of arrive, it's not always consistent. You still have to have those moments where you come to grips with it and sort of, okay, I got to move past this fear. And that fear was keeping me from saying yes to that opportunity. But I think, like, oh my gosh, for the next how many years now, I would have missed out on so much. And so, again, that's where, again, a lot of times when I'm meeting with women one on one, they're not believing in themselves. They've been feeling like a failure. And it's like, I see it happening, and I'm believing in them. And I did that um, in higher education as I worked with college students. And I was also a college instructor. When I got my master's in English, I also taught too. And so it's like, I believe you can do this. I worked with students who were on academic probation at Bradley, and they're feeling like a failure, and I'm like, you got it, and you got me by your side, and we're gonna achieve this. And that's the same thing here as I'm working with women. I am with you, we're partnering in this, and you're going to achieve your goals. And I believe you can do it. And then
Right.
it starts catching up with them. Like, I think, and when they start tasting success, that's where the small steps
That's
are so important. They
that's
taste success and then it fuels their motivation to keep on going. And that's the cool thing.
right now. Well, that's a wrap, and I appreciate your sharing that story, how powerful it was. Pam, how can our viewing audience reach you?
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and you mentioned your Facebook group, which I did join, and so I can put my contact in there. Or if you're in your show notes, I write a weekly newsletter called Thriving Through Life's Transitions, and it's just some personal stories. It's some kind of strategies just to really improve your overall health, physically, mentally, emotionally. People can sign up for that. That's free. I also have a free resource I'd love to offer to your audience. It's on one surprising reason we experience stress. And so I actually focus on the physical clutter. So if you're needing a little bit of motivation and maybe some small steps on how to start doing that in your home to relieve your stress, you can request that. And I mentioned about the breaking free from sugar craving. So I have a webinar coming up in October. People can sign up for that, but it'll be recorded. So you can always request that. So they can contact me at my email, which is transform@pammillercoach.com. So I'd love to hear from your
Form at
audience.
PamMillerCoach.com. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Pam. This has been a joy and delight. I appreciate your time and your sharing your wisdom with us. And thank you, our viewers, for joining us on the We Can Do It Women show. Remember, I see you, I value you, and your greatest chapter is just beginning. If today's episode sparks something in you, I encourage you to be that pivotal person for one or more other people and tell them they can do it. Show them your belief in them because that paying it forward is invaluable and there are ripples beyond that which we're ever going to know. So go ahead and start those ripples happening. I urge you to, until next time, pay attention to your money, of course, and it will surely pay you back. And until then, be well. Um, let's pay this forward because sometimes we may have our antenna up and sense this person needs to hear from me. Maybe let's think through our contact list. Who haven't we touched base with recently? Because that person may be coming into our mind for the exact reason of us being the person to reach out to them. So anyway, that's my idea of intuition and follow through and being the one for each other. Thank you so much.